Situated in the mountains of New Mexico lies the ruins of Pecos Pueblo, a thriving Native American trade hub that connected Plains and Pueblo cultures for over 700 years. This strategic settlement once housed 2,000 people before disease and warfare led its last inhabitants to abandon it in 1838. Today, Pecos National Historical Park protects the remains of ancestral pueblos, kivas, and Spanish missions that tell the story of this remarkable crossroads. Let's uncover its legacy. Pecos National Historical Park protects the ruins of Pecos Pueblo, a really fascinating Native American community that was super important for a very long time. This place was like the crossroads between Pueblo and Plains Indian cultures for centuries. There's so much history there. Let me break it down for you. So Pecos Pueblo, also called Cicuye, was first built around 1100 AD by the ancestors of the modern Pueblo Indian tribes. Back then, there were about 24 little farming villages scattered along the Pecos River Valley, but over the next few hundred years, Cicuye kept growing until it was huge, with over 2,000 people living there. That's like a pretty good-sized town even today. The Pecos Indians who lived at Cicuye spoke the Towa language and had a really rich culture. They did beautiful pottery with cool geometric designs. Their kivas, which are like underground ceremonial rooms, were just massive, some over 40 feet wide. Farming beans, corn, squash, and stuff is how most folks got by. The true significance of Cicuye was its strategic location along both geographical and cultural borders. Tucked into the winding Pecos River Valley beneath the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, the massive Pueblo stood less than 100 miles from other major Puebloan population centers like Taos and Santa Fe, close enough to regularly trade prized resources like cornmeal, pottery vessels, and turquoise jewelry within their connected world. Yet Cicuye also lay at the edge of Puebloan territory, directly bordering the vast plains belonging to nomadic tribes like the Comanche and Apache. For these groups, seasonal buffalo hunts and raiding warfare were a way of life. But during times of peace, they exchanged essential goods and ideas with the Pecos Indians. Thus, Cicuye became a bustling trade hub and gateway that bridged the gap between the settled Puebloan farmers of the Rio Grande and roving buffalo hunter warriors of the plains. It connected two cultures often separated by differences in language, livelihood, and ritual tradition. Yet here they managed to communicate in trade sign languages and even influenced each other's religious beliefs. The exchange of agricultural produce, meat, tools, weapons, and ideas made Cicuye a meeting point for hundreds of years. There was just nothing else quite like it across the whole southwest and southern plains borderlands. So in many ways, this prominent pueblo represented a unique fusion of two worlds, a crossroads of Puebloan and Plains lifeways coming together in harmony through commerce, communication, and mutual respect. This went on for hundreds of years, but then the Spanish showed up in the 1500s and everything changed. When Coronado came through in 1540 scouting for gold, the Spanish and Pecos Indians did not get along at first. Same story with the first missionary priests. Eventually, they built a church right in the Pueblo around 1620. Some of the Pecos straight up rejected Christianity and built a kiva in front of the church. Crazy picture, right? But later things calmed down and they built a smaller church that stayed there for over 100 years. Even with all that drama though, Pecos Pueblo just kept on thriving for a couple centuries as that trading crossroads place. But then some bad stuff went down that led to its decline. Smallpox outbreaks from the Spanish seriously cut down the population. The Plains tribes started getting more aggressive. There was violence and raiding. By 1838, only about 20 people still lived at Pecos Pueblo, and then they peaced out too, going to live with their relatives at Jemez Pueblo. Just like that, Pecos was a ghost town after 700 years. Today, most of the old Pueblo and Spanish church ruins are protected within Pecos National Historical Park. There's a small visitor center and you can take trails around the site. They've uncovered kivas, living rooms, ceremonial chambers, all built from adobe and red sandstone bricks. It's not like the towering cliff cities, but the size is still super impressive when you're walking through. There's also some remains of ranches and homesteads from later years too. In addition to the Pecos Pueblo ruins, another integral part of Pecos National Historical Park is the Glorieta Battlefield. Located just west of the Pueblo site near Glorieta Pass, this area preserves the grounds of an important Civil War engagement from 1862. Back then, at the height of the war between the Union and Confederacy, Thousands of Confederate soldiers invaded northeastern New Mexico territory from Texas. Their goal was to capture key Union stores at Fort Union and possibly advance up to Colorado goldfields. The Union forces in the region were outmanned as New Mexico had been considered a backwater posting. However, local militia units assembled along with Colorado and California volunteer regiments rushed to Glorieta Pass, a strategic natural choke point on the approach to Fort Union. On March 26 to 28, the two sides waged an extended pitched battle across the rugged wooded terrain. The fighting ebbed and flowed over 3 days until the Confederates ultimately retreated back to Texas, critically short on supplies after the Union burned their wagon train. The battle itself had been largely inconclusive from a tactical sense, with similar casualties on both sides. Yet the Union could claim a strategic victory in turning back the Confederate advance that protected the entire Southwest territory. Today, parts of the Glorieta battlefield are preserved to commemorate this little-known but impactful clash of arms that helped ensure New Mexico would remain in Union control until the end of the war. Visitors can walk trails near the Pecos Pueblo ruins to reflect upon the long legacy of multicultural history and strife rooted in the land there. The last thing that ties everything together is the Santa Fe Trail, the ancient trade route from Missouri that brought wagons full of American goods and settlers. It passes right through the park, so you can literally see centuries of history overlapping at this one spot. From native tribes and Spanish priests to cowboys and soldiers, it's what makes Pecos such a unique place to visit. Pecos National Historical Park protects the ruins of a large Pueblo Indian trading hub that connected agricultural and nomadic cultures for hundreds of years, until being abandoned after disease and conflict arrived with Spanish colonization. And that wraps up the story of Pecos National Historical Park. Have you walked among the ruins of the mighty Pecos Pueblo? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to Archaeotrek to discover the rich cultures and history of New Mexico.